So James is having spinach, arugula, and pomegranate arrows, trout, and this potato. That's this loaded baked potato. But I cooked the potato on the grill because I don't have a microwave, and boy, that did not work. I don't know how I'm going to clean the grill. Ashby got top of the stack rating, then The Drowning and Paradise Highway got the bottom of the stack. And then James is going to talk about a book, I imagine. It looks like
Rigoberta Menchú, an Indian woman in Guatemala, apparently a winner of the 1992 Nobel Peace Prize. And this is the book that alerted me to the possibility that there's something fake about this narrative, to use a nifty, shifty, hefty, lefty buzzword. Narrative. Okay.
Okay, so Ashby. This had a lot of name players in Mickey Rourke, Nat Wolff, who I haven't heard of, Emma Roberts, and Sarah Silverman, and they did a good job.
Is it a comedy now?
Well, it sort of is,
Silverman in it?
but
okay.
I mean, it has some dark elements, right? You have Mickey Rourke is this next door neighbor that the kid has an assignment. He's 17 years old, and he has this assignment from school to write an essay about go talk to an old person that you know, or that
I heard
in your
that
neighborhood or whatever.
Yeah.
And write an essay about, find out more about them so you can learn about their history and anyway, so
could be dangerous, eh? Mickey
yeah,
Rourke
well, it turns out this neighbor, he first he tells the kid that he's he was a napkin salesman and he tried straws for a while, and that wasn't his thing, you know. But so he sold napkins and coasters. So that was his story, right? But it was just a total lie. The Mickey Rourke's character was a CIA hitman, really, essentially. So
I'm not sure if the CIA would work that downstream.
Yeah.
Maybe a contract killer or something like that. But the genuine CIA, if there is such a thing, they tend to have Ivy League degrees and stuff like that. Example, George W. Bush, Yale University. No, George W.
You meant
George
senior.
Bush.
Yeah.
George H.W. Herbert Walker Bush.
No, W. The CIA. I don't think they'd ever take him.
Too dull for him.
Yeah.
And Howard Hunt. It's not a matter of controversy that he was somewhat up the CIA hierarchy. I believe his alma mater was Brown University of Providence, Rhode Island. Many people might not have heard of it, but it is an Ivy League university, just not one of the most prestigious.
So anyway, it's a teen feel-good sort of movie, and it's kind of interesting. The Drowning, I didn't really believe it at all. So anyway, it's a story about a couple who their 4-year-old son vanished. They were having a family get-together at a lake, and the 4-year-old son vanished and was presumed drowned. And the police dredged the lake. They didn't find a body, but still they just wrote it off as drowned. They didn't think the boy was abducted. The mother never gave up hope, and she sees a boy that she's convinced is her son grown up, and like he's 14 or whatever. And she doesn't go about things in a very smart way, but I don't know that many people would. It'd be
Emotional?
yeah. Anyway, one, I don't believe that the police would ever say, "Oh yeah, we've just classified this your son died of drowning," even though there's no body. They would never do that. I don't think the police anywhere would do that. So, I mean, if there's no body, there's no crime for in the way of murder or death or whatever, as far as I know. So, anyway. And I don't believe that what happened at the end with the lawyer and the DNA stuff and whatever, I don't believe that'd be possible either. And I didn't like the ending.
So this is not a documentary,
No,
it's a story.
It's just it was 187 minutes.
Oh my
It's
God,
4
that's over
episodes.
3 hours.
Yeah, it's a TV miniseries
Okay.
sort of thing. So anyway, Paradise Highway. I expected a lot better. I looked at it first, I saw Morgan Freeman, and I'm like, oh, because Morgan Freeman, he's on a watch list for me. He's not a good actor. He gets a lot of roles, but yeah, anyway. But I saw Juliette Binoche here, got the top of the top rating. She's the first name on the screen there, and as she should be, she's the main character. But why did it get the bottom of the stack? I love Juliette Binoche. So they have her at the beginning. She's a trucker, which whatever, that's fine.
Trucker.
And
okay, how realistic is that? Anyway.
Well, some women are truckers.
I know. But
So no, anyway, we were talking about
like
this
that.
recently,
Mhm.
and so anyway, I mean, sometimes you do have women truckers, but they tend to be in a marriage situation, so they're tag teaming with their husband or whatever. But anyway, so she's a trucker, whatever, and they're talking on the radios together, and her and some other women truckers, and
That must be
it
every
comes out
woman
that she's
trucker
from
in the world.
Canadian. She's Canadian, and that's why she has this French accent. And and that's fine. They obviously changed that at the beginning, whatever they'd scripted to fit her in. But then they have her going, like her brother, who's in prison, does not have a French accent. Which, who cares? Replace him. If you get Juliette Binoche, who's agreed to do a movie, any movie, especially a crap one like this for you, get somebody else to do the brother.
There'd be
Just
plenty of
tweak it a
actors
little
from
bit
Quebec.
exactly. You can find somebody who can fit this role. So the brother doesn't have a French accent, and then later on they're going to Arkansas, back to their hometown, and it's like, okay, you were working with the Canadian thing, and then you just threw it out the window, like just went back to the script. Like, that's ridiculous. Anyway, it's just garbage.
You go next door to Louisiana, and there is a French.
Exactly. It wouldn't have been hard to tweak the script a little in that direction, right? Oy, oy, oy. Anyway. And then I look at I'm looking at the cover, and I'm like, Paradise Highway, they put the little lines, like the eyes, look like lines in the road, right? The dotted line. They do it in orange. Why? You had the sense to put it as a highway dot line, and then you do it in orange. Come on.
You think of those as yellow, right?
Yes. So then they could have done, like, the background could have been whatever color this paradise, the rest of the words could have been black with the little yellow line, and it would have been good. The artwork would have been good on the cover, and you missed it. It's obvious you missed it. And
They wanted the printing to stand out from the yellow bit.
yeah, well, they just could have changed this yellow to be
They could have.
different. Whatever. Who cares? Because that would have been way better. Anyway, stupid story. It's about human trafficking. And
You mean like smuggling people?
yeah,
into
smuggling
the United
girls
States?
to be
Oh,
sold
that.
as sex slaves or
Okay.
whatever. I mean, it's pretty obvious. They don't say it outright, what's happening, but it's pretty obvious that's what they're... Anyway, talking about. That's all I got. How's that potato?
Well, it's quite good.
Okay. So we were given that loaded baked potato, and we're thankful for whatever food we get. So that one has bacon bits, and I did not read to see if they're real bacon bits, but. Anyway, you have 20 minutes. Roughly. No, I'm not giving you anything, Albert. You wait. You've already gotten treats today.
Let's see what Mark Stein says about Rigoberta Menchú. And I remembered it. There was accent on the second syllable. I remembered it vaguely. Because he didn't put the accent here, or his publishers didn't.
It's still hot.
So liberals are so smart they teach a fake book in college. Rigoberta Menchú. Didn't put the accent on. I don't know if what he's saying is true or not. But what I'm accepting as true is.
Oh wait, I'm not letting you out there. He doesn't have any for you right now.
Winner of the 1992 Nobel Peace Prize. No. Now I don't know if that's Rigoberta Menchú or Elizabeth Burgos de Bry. I gather de Bry is a anthropologist. I've heard the name before. Oh. Information desk, Rigoberta Menchú Foundation. Not in Guatemala, but 8 West 40th Street, New York. I think that would be in Manhattan somewhere. Oh, so Rigoberta Menchú, has created the Rigoberta Menchú Foundation with headquarters in Guatemala City and offices in Mexico and New York. So this is the New York address. And became the leader and spokesperson of the indigenous peoples all over the world. Interesting. Now, I don't know if she actually exists, if she's actually a peasant woman, if she's from Guatemala. Everything might be just gospel truth in here. And everyone knows, since Margaret Mead, anthropologist, de Bry is an anthropologist, described as an anthropologist somewhere. Everyone knows they tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Or maybe I'm just being I'm not even being ironic. Maybe I'm being just sarcastic. For the first and only time. The Bible and self-defense. So let's see what it says about de Bry. Translator's note. Me llamo Rigoberta Menchú y así me nació la conciencia by, so it was put out in Spain, Barcelona. Now there's a lot of lefties, and so she's supposed to be a left-wing peasant woman. Generally, peasant people haven't been right, left, up, down. Well, you could say back. They've been kind of in the past. I'm not going to call them backwards, because that's kind of a loaded term. It's probably very, 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 very politically incorrect. And Lord only knows I want to be so politically correct. Am I being ironic again, or is it just sheer sarcasm? So I've only just started this, so I'm not reviewing. I'm not even previewing. But, I'm just saying to you anthropologists out there, I'm on your case. I'm watching you, it's, how does it go? You know, I got my eyes on you guys. And so far, like what I see. So we're going back to Mark Stein, and I'll be going back again and again and again. This guy is not generally to my taste, but he's found places where he claims, at least, so-called liberals, I call them nifty shifty, hefty lefties, have made gross and egregious errors. Look that up in your Funkin' Writer. G-R-O-S. No. Let me see. So I already had covered how he misinterpreted, and he's got to know better. American debt, American public and private debt America went from being a creditor nation in 1981 to, at the latest, 2011, being presumably something like the largest debtor nation. And he's blaming it on the not the Liberal Party, but liberals in general. No. Right-wingers had been in power for roughly 2/3 of that time period. It was Ronald Reagan, as much as anyone, who really thumped the American, at least the public financial system by increasing.
Well, if you're spending your money on war kind of things, for one thing, you're literally just blowing up whatever you're spending your money on.
Or just burying it in the ground if you're not actually using it. They didn't actually use, like, they weren't fighting, like whatever they were providing. They provided some Stinger missiles, probably for free to the Afghans, and thank heavens they did. The Russians, when they first walked into Afghanistan in 1979, they just took it over. Just boom. They were pretty ruthless in their bombing and stuff like that. The Americans, when they took over Afghanistan and all its problems, in 2001, late 2001, after 9/11, they took it over quickly, but the people on the ground who were with the CIA agents and other types of people who are calling in the bombings couldn't believe it. They said, well, is that all there is? They were like Peggy Lee, because apparently the Americans had these guys calling in, it was almost like surgical. So the bombers were way up there. They're hardly in sight. And then the stuff was guided down with information technology and hardly anything. But the Russians were like doing as much as possible, kind of like saturation bombing and stuff like that. Anyway, they took it over, and they were doing okay, and then the Americans provided the Afghan with Stinger missiles, and the Russians. Well, that's one of the things that helped bring down the Soviet Union. They were losing, I think they lost maybe 25,000 people in about 8 years. Of course, they've lost more than that in 1 year because the Ukrainians, and you got nifty, shifty, hefty lefties, wringing their hands. It's so awful, like it's a stalemate, and the Ukrainians should surrender. The Russians are in. It's not a quagmire. They're in a meat grinder. And they got both their feet in the meat grinder, both their hands in the meat grinder. Stupid. Of course, when the Americans get involved with something like Afghanistan, it's a quagmire. It's a swamp. Like they better get out of it. It's not like the Afghans should surrender or anything like that, according to them. Anyway, let's see. Here's something. Michelle Obama, former Michelle Robinson. I think Robinson's her maiden name. Page 152. Okay. Okay, in fairness, there remain certain exceptions to these leisurely frauds. America contains world-class academic institutions in science and engineering. But half the graduate students in these fields are foreigners, and more return home at the end of their studies. In other words, they could come from Hong Kong or whatever. Perhaps we could train a few diversity offers to replace retiring physicists. In other words, replace them with people of color or whatever. Beyond that, and he's being ironic, maybe sarcastic. Beyond that, as universal credentialism created a golden age of American scholarship, not so as you'd notice. Michelle Obama was born in 1964, 10 years after me. So the Civil Rights Act was enacted, I believe, in 1964, thanks to LBJ. So unlike Condoleezza Rice, who was, what was that? Was it Secretary of State for Bush Jr.? A person of black persuasion, and I'm being ironic. She actually went to Stanford University. I don't know how to she got. Unlike Condoleezza Rice, she has no vivid childhood memories of racial segregation. So, at least officially, racial segregation was gone by 1960. She, that's I think he's referring to Michelle Obama. She was among the first generation to benefit from affirmative action. He should have said Obama here. It's kind of like a hanging. I don't think that's a technical term, but a hanging pronoun. First generation benefit from affirmative action, which I think was first instituted in 1965, first referred to by John F. Kennedy. Okay, which was supposed to ameliorate the lingering grievances of racism, but seems in Mrs. Obama's case merely to have transformed them into postmodern pseudo-grievance. All my life, this is Obama being quoted, Michelle, all my life I've confronted people who have had a certain expectation of me, she told an audience in Madison, presumably a university audience, Madison, Wisconsin. Hosts, what is it? Is the Center for the University of Wisconsin. Every step, it's capital of Wisconsin. Every step of the way there was somebody there telling me what I couldn't do. Applied to Princeton. You can't go there. Your test scores aren't high enough. In a real world, if your test scores aren't high enough to get into Princeton, you go back and hit the books. That's what you do. I had a insignificant other who was in drama, as they called it then. I think they call it performing arts now. And I can remember one guy I knew in drama back then who actually got leading roles, not just roles in the university-wide productions. Parodying her, like mimic her. I can't do it. How am I going to become a good actor if I don't get the roles? And he just was, then he said, like broke into his own voice, what you do is you get in front of a mirror and you start practicing. You don't learn in public. Canada has that problem with hockey. They play games, too many games, and they don't have enough practices. And you don't improve unless you practice. I got pretty darn good at things like running a mile, running the 10-mile road race, by doing the 5BX RCAF program. That was in my basement. The only people that knew about it were the people upstairs. They're probably wondering, what, is this guy torturing himself to death? Because, like I was doing, I'd be huffing and puffing down there and stuff like that. You hit the books. Hit the books or hit the bricks. You can't go there. Your test scores aren't high enough. No, they're not high enough. You shouldn't be able to go there. I went. What? How does that happen? I graduated with departmental honors. You got to be careful when you're handing in essays, and people are wanting to pat you on the, we'll say on the back, and promote you and stuff like that. That's a problem. You know, her marks weren't high enough. I don't know. That presumably the SAT marks. That's objectively. I don't know about how objectively framed, but objectively marked. It should be administered and objectively marked. You don't do well in it. But then when you get I'm getting suspicious when you get departmental graduated with departmental honors. Okay. And then I wanted to go to Harvard. Ooh-wee. And that was probably a little too tough for me. I didn't even know why they said that. But hang on, her test scores weren't high enough for Princeton, yet rather than telling her, you can't go there, they took her anyway. And all the thanks they get is that her test scores are now a recurring point of resentment. There's stuff that we're seeing in these polls, she told another audience, has played out my whole life. You know, always being told by someone that I'm not ready, that I can't do something, my scores weren't high enough. If your scores aren't high enough, you're not ready. Now, when people are saying you can't do that, what they're telling you is you can't do that now. You get your test scores up. They're not saying you can't do that forever. See how she's misinterpreting it? That's the logical fallacy of two terms. She's equivocating.
You have 2 minutes.
Okay. If she had been Elizabeth Edwards and her scores weren't high enough, maybe that's Jonathan Edwards' wife, that'd be that. Teresa Heinz Kerry could probably leverage the whole Mozambican thing. If Mrs. Balmer regards contemporary state-mandated compensation for institutional racism from before she was born as merely another burden to bear. In testament to an age of boundless self-infatuation, she arrived as a black woman at Princeton and wrote her undergraduate thesis on the difficulties of being a black woman at Princeton. Princeton educated blacks, it's not difficult, she got in there. Princeton educated blacks and the black community is a self-meditation, that's the title of her piece. Piece of what? I don't know. By the then Miss Robinson, the question of whether an Ivy League black student drawn into the white world is betraying lower-class blacks. Or, as she put it, get ready, folks, this is classics. A separationist is more likely to have a realistic impression of the plight of the black lower class because of the likelihood that a separationist is more closely associated with the black lower class than are integrationists. Sick is put in, it doesn't have the K in it, but it's put in by Mark Stein. He's not misquoting it, apparently. By actually working with the black lower class or within their communities, it should be its community. As a result of their ideologies, the separationists may better understand the desperation, misspelled, of their situation and feel more hopeless about a resolution as opposed to an integrationist who is ignorant to their plight. Ignorant of their plight, as to their plight. This is awful. That's just one paragraph. Maybe he picked out the worst paragraph. I don't know. So this is her